Hello everybody, this is TV Hub Sherwood here, back again with another video. This time we're going to do an overview of Series 8 of Doctor Who. This one came out like in September and it just ran through until now. And I've seen every episode, so I'll know what to do. Basically, this is a show about a Time Lord with usually with an accomplice who goes around solving crimes through time and space anywhere he wants to go. He uses his magical blue TARDIS to travel there. And he fights off evil, helps people in the process, and we get to see just great storylines involved. Now, in the process of this video, I will be telling you about which episodes I found the worst and which ones I found the best through a review-like format overview. As a whole, I will look at the series and each individual episode, trying to view it as I've viewed all the other episodes, and all characters and storylines will be brought into the process of what I think of the individual episode and the series as a whole, and what I thought of Series 8 in general compared to the other series that went before, and which ones will be going after them, obviously. Now, I hope that you enjoy this one, guys. Doctor Who, Series 8. Sit down, relax, it's going to be a long one. And just make sure that you enjoy. So Series 8 began for me with what I felt a very special and memorable episode. This one for me standed up as just being a great old episode, I think. So let's talk about the episode. First off, so this episode was called Deep Breath, and was actually longer than usual. It was like 78 minutes long, and it was the first episode that was shown. It was written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Ben Wheatley. This is the first time we get to see Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor. First time we got to see him play a full episode. Before this, we got to see a little his regeneration sequence from the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, into him, and that's all we got to see. We got to see a cameo, and also in this episode we got to see a cool Matt Smith cameo as well. Just speaking of that, so the plot of this episode, to put in simplest terms, is the newly regenerated Doctor asks the half-faced man, the villain, where did he acquire his new face, and also asking himself the new question, because it's a new series opener with a new Doctor. It's sort of obvious that he has to find his way inside his new body and his new character, and it's really just entertaining watching him. Now, the most obvious thing to do would be to look at how Peter Capaldi plays in this episode. I think this is the most, you're watching this episode and you're thinking about Peter Capaldi because this is the first episode he's in, and first proper episode for him for the new 12th Doctor, and you're analysing this new Doctor to see how he fits in with all the other Doctors before him. For me, if I could just imagine him, I would imagine him probably as being up there on Matt Smith's level, along with Christopher Eccleston, of course. And for me, I think Christopher Eccleston was probably my favourite Doctor, but again, I don't want to get into too much of the other Doctors. But for me, Peter Capaldi in this episode performed wonderfully. He did what he was meant to do. Throughout the episode, he performed alongside Clara Oswald, who was alongside the other old Doctor, and she was just really shocked in this episode, and you can see it definitely. And I loved the chemistry between the two, Clara and the Doctor, the 12th Doctor, of course. And we got some closure with Matt Smith in this episode, so we got to, figure out, okay, we're not going to go back to the old Doctors as much now, because we've seen that Matt Smith's here, and he's saying, you're alright, Clara, with David Tennant, so it's like, with Peter Capaldi, so it's like the passing of the torch to Peter Capaldi to now deliver with this new series, so it just boosted you forward to get excited for this new series in the same way as you should. And if you could just look at this as the storyline, I think the storyline was sort of weak in the way that if it didn't feature Capaldi's regenerative sequence, it definitely wouldn't have been as long. Like, it's 78 minutes, obviously, the series opener. Like I'm not sure if they've done this with other series openers, but I was kind of surprised when I saw it was this long. I watched it and I could definitely feel it was longer. Like, the usual episode is 45 minutes, so this is like 30 minutes longer, and it's a noticeable difference. And you could see why they did it, for a lot of reasons, but maybe shouldn't have been as long. That's nitpicking again. I think this is just my opinion, and I don't think it should be taken as given. But obviously it's Doctor Who, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. So this one, Deep Breath. The main enemy in this episode, I guess, is the half-faced man. What do I think of him? I thought he was all right. Definitely the scene with Clara in the where Clara goes into the base and has to escape, and Deep Breath, and you can see where that goes from. Very intense there. Yeah, so I'm also going to talk about half-faced man. Thumbs up to him. At the ending, the mysterious ending where, if you don't already know, Doctor and the half-faced man are up on some flying thing, I think, and you see a shot of them looking at each other, like Doctor with his evil new face that he has, sort of stern look, and just the Peter Capaldi face, and we see another shot of the half-faced man fall down, and we're left to wonder, did he push the half-faced man, the Doctor, or did he fall, or he jump or something? But that's one of the mysterious clues that never got answered, so I love that it didn't get answered. Okay, I'm going to talk about the other aspect of the show that was sort of controversial and sort of picked out when people did a review of this episode. For me, the three accomplices, should I say that? Madame Vastra, Jenny Flint, and Strax. Madame and Jenny obviously being in a relationship there. If you don't already know, these are three just people who've appeared in previous series. Just Stephen Moffat has brought them in to see, just to add like a whole another aspect to the show. That in this episode, I don't know, a lot of people did not want to see them come back, and for me, I liked them in this episode. I think they were never brought back into any other episodes, so it was a one-time deal where the Doctor knows that he's got other people he can bring in, and he has done before. So this is just a way of getting other people into the show, just to make it a grand series opener. For me, I personally enjoyed Strax quite a lot. All the others were good too, and Strax, I don't know, I just served as this sort of another aspect of the show. This episode, for me, it offered so much that it's hard to like break down to one thing. Is it my favourite episode from Series 8? Probably not. I'll get just to what I think of the other episodes after this one. But back to this episode. Relationship between Doctor and Clara was strong in the way that it was the juxtaposition between Clara and Doctor, and Clara moving on. In one way, this episode was about Clara just having to move on and having to adjust, and obviously she not knowing who the new Doctor is, and Doctor not knowing himself who he is. Talking personally about the Doctor, Doctor, just the way he acts, it's so personal and intense, and on so many, just, my god, I love this guy so much. If you haven't seen him, you have to go watch at least one of these episodes to see how this guy works. The comedic timing, I've never laughed so much at a Doctor, really. And I've laughed with the Doctor's jokes and just never been so just entertained. Well, I've been entertained the same, but the way I got entertained here, I felt fresh and different and new, and just like the casting was completely correct in this decision that was made. deep breath for me. There you go. Let's move on to which one we do now. So at the end of this episode, I felt like I had been served what I wanted, and I think it gave what definitely what I would think that a series opener should give. So this one gets 8.5 out of 10. Really good. Okay, so the next episode from Series 8 is Episode 2, Into the Dalek. I'm sure this is obviously the second episode, so it's going to be brought down a little from the pilot, I guess. Stephen Moffat wrote the pilot. For this episode, what happens is we are written by, I think, a newbie, Phil Ford. It was the second episode that came out, and Stephen Moffat also had a part in this episode, I guess. Let's just talk about the episode, the synopsis. The synopsis for this episode is that the Doctor and Clara are on a mission. They save Rebel fighter Journey Blue from her space shuttle, which is under attack by Daleks. He returns her to a Rebel command ship. Aristotle, a former hospital ship converted for military use, prevent his being executed as a potential Dalek spy. Journey offers the Doctor the services to assist with their patient, a damaged Dalek, the rebels found floating through space. This Dalek, surprisingly, declares the Dalek's race is evil and must be destroyed. Somehow, the damage inflicted upon it has given it a sense of morality. So, basically making it a good Dalek. Meanwhile, Danny Pink, an Afghanistan war veteran, emotionally scarred from his experiences, begins teaching maths at Coal Hill School. In the staff room, Danny is introduced to Clara Oswald, who invites him to a leaving do for one of their colleagues. Danny declines, feeling awkward due to an obvious connection between them. However, when Clara finds him in the classroom despairing over his actions, she invites him out for a drink instead. He agrees. Back at her office, Clara comes face to face with the Doctor, who she hasn't seen in 3 weeks since he left her to get coffee in Glasgow, as seen in Deep Breath. He tells her that he needs her help. He begins by asking her for her honest opinion. Is he a good man? Clara hesitantly replies that she doesn't know. The Doctor then briefs her on what happened about the Aristotle. Clara agrees to assist her efforts to help the good Dalek, despite the Doctor's connections that Daleks cannot be turned good. Back at the Aristotle, the Doctor, Clara, Journey, and 2 rebel soldiers, Ross and Gretchen, are miniaturized so they can enter the broken Dalek, nicknamed Rusty by the Doctor, to determine what is making it good. So that's most of the plot done there. I'm not going to go past that because, well, that goes on to just the whole plot of the episode. So there's sort of we get introduced to a new storyline between how Clara and Danny are together, and how that awkward relationship develops. Obviously, this one, I don't know. When I watched it, I was, especially the Colonel Morgan Blue. I quite liked him. Played by Michael Smiley. Danny Pink appears pretty good, and a memorable performance in this episode. Very interesting. This episode is going to be the second episode, and Into the Dalek. Pretty strong episode for the second one, and it got me pretty pumped for what was going to come in the coming episodes. So it did its job, as I like to say, and not on the same level as Deep Breath, but it could be worse. So no, it could be a lot worse than this. This is a good performance on all actors' parts, and pretty strong side characters as well. This gets a 7.5 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. You know what? For what it was, I think there were some weak bits in the episode, so I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Anyway, the third episode we stumble upon is Robot of Sherwood. This one is the third episode, as I said, and was written by Mark Gatiss and directed by Paul Murphy.
I think Mark Gatiss is sort of a friend of Stephen Moffat's, I think. And so forth, he got him to work on this one, and he sort of trusted him on this episode. So, we have Tom Riley and Ben Miller guest starring, who are two pretty famous people in British acting. And let's get to the plot first off. So Clara Oswald insists that the Doctor takes her to meet Robin Hood, despite the Doctor claims that Robin Hood is only a legend. Clara Oswald is sort of acting like, well, she's saying that Robin Hood was her hero as a child, but she wants to see the supposed legend that the Doctor claims he is. When the TARDIS lands in medieval England, they meet a man who claims he's Robin Hood. Robin challenges the Doctor to a duel, and the Doctor accepts, using a spoon instead of a sword. The Doctor manages to push Robin into a river, only to be pushed in by Robin later. Still, the Doctor remains in disbelief, even as Robin takes to meet his band of merry men. Clara enjoys her time there and learns that Robin is still looking for Maid Marian. But the Doctor remains distrustful of Robin, and is convinced there is something wrong, particularly with the weather. It's far too green and sunny for the season. So this is really like directed at Peter Capaldi's Doctor type episode that only really works with him. I think it's because he's such a sort of disbelieving guy and quite stubborn. So he always wants to be right, and when Clara shows him something sort of different and something that he doesn't believe in, it brings up the question: is Doctor? Doctor's a fictional character, and he's in the universe, not believing in someone else who is also fictional, Robin Hood. So it's about a fictional character. This is the episode that is about a fictional character. But again, there's going to be some problems with this episode, and the main one probably that the villain, whatever his name is, the sheriff of Nottingham, well, you can clearly see that he was a one-dimensional character, and Robin Hood was just played like any old character. I was excited to hear that he was playing the sheriff, because I know him. What is his name? But anyway, that's sort of where it fell down. At the end of the episode, when the Clara and Doctor and the Robin Hood all work together to try to take down one of the robot ships, they use an arrow which hit the engine part, and that is how the episode sort of finishes off the main plot device. So of course I'm not going to be completely happy with watching this episode, but if you view it as a fun little escape for Clara to have fun, and the Doctor's have a little less fun, kind of, with him questioning, is it real or whatever he says. That was Tom Riley as Robin Hood, and Ben Miller as Sheriff Nottingham. That's what I was going to say. But anyway, it's fun. That's all it is, and so it was kind of badly written in a way, but in other ways it had some fun stuff, and I actually enjoyed watching it quite a bit. So I'm not going to complain too much. This one gets, for me, a 6.5 out of 10, because I probably didn't enjoy it as much as it was meant to enjoy, and it tried a little too hard to have too much stupid nonsense sensical stuff. But there's a fun fight scene as well, and I think and now the episode that, if anyone is a fan of Doctor Who, they know how hyped this one got. How much hype this one's got, sorry. It's another Stephen Moffat episode, written by Stephen Moffat himself, I think. And it's the 4th episode of the 8th series. And, well, it got a lot of press, or a lot of, hype before it even came out. It was promised to be one of these dark episodes, sort of like comparing to Blink, sort of, but not really. So listen, episode 245, number 245, episode 4, so of 8 series 8. Let's see. We have the plot, which I'm going to talk about now. Clara Oswald meets with fellow Coal Hill teacher Danny Pink for their first date. However, things take a turn for the worst when the subject of his time serving in the army comes up, and they each unintentionally offend the other with their lack of understanding. which I thought was really good. On a return home, she discovers the Doctor waiting for her, needing her help. He has begun to question whether every living being has a constant companion, using an example of the dream all people have, showing everyone from young children to an elderly woman, in which a hand grabs them from under the bed at night. Clara initially dismisses this, but agrees to return to her childhood so they can investigate. She uses the TARDIS telepathic link to try and lock on the event. But when her mind strays to Danny, they end up in a children's home in Gloucestershire in the mid-1990s, where Clara is shocked to meet Rupert Pink, Danny as a child, before he changed his name. The Doctor initially believed that Clara hadn't faulted with keeping focus, believing the place was a repressed memory from her childhood. So, there you go. That gives you an idea of what happens in this episode. It tries to go in with a lot of... Initially, it tries to go in with different approaches, different styles of doing things. So, I really, really enjoyed the start of this episode with the first date of Clara and Danny. It was very awkward and it felt realistic, and I felt like it was a weird conversation that was going nowhere. But anyway, we could tell that these two characters were having a tough time on a first date, and it was they're both very sensitive people, obviously Clara and Danny, and it was completely, like, this started off without the Doctor involved. So, we thought that this might have gone Clara direction, sort of focusing on her character. As it develops, we get to see a new sort of, a concept that was brought in in Series 1, I think, with the first Doctor and Rose. I actually get around to doing that review, whatever, when I get to the time. But this one... But if you remember back in Father's Day in Series 1, the Doctor and Rose desperately wanted to see her father again, so she went back in time and found out that sort of thing. And this reminded me definitely of that, because she went back into her own past that she knew quite well, but she wanted to change something. But here, the Doctor sort of wants Clara to go back, and he wants to discover the concept that he came up with at the start of the episode. He wants to find out what's underneath their beds, or he wants to find out Clara's past, but end up going into Danny's past instead. We get a really creepy moment with this. Well, it's sort of trying a bit hard to be creepy. When Doctor and Clara are in a room with a young Danny, and before he changed his name, and is Rupert Pink, I think. He changed his name. And a figure approaches, but they don't know who it is. It's in a cloth, and it disappears after like a bit. It disappears quite suddenly after that. It was almost trying a little hard to be creepy. I'm probably gonna get hate for this, but throughout the episode, I didn't feel like I felt sort of scared for Doctor Who, and I really enjoyed it, but it for me didn't really reach the scare factor of Blink. Maybe I'm being wrong there. Sorry. The Weeping Angels for me just really creepy. No, don't get me wrong. Throughout the episode, it was really dark and grim. You can see it was like based in through the nighttime, and lots of kind of funny Stephen Moffat parts here, but the new approach took away from the fact that it wasn't really focusing on any monster or anything like that. Listening, it was more about the psyche of Doctor and Clara, and them discovering Orson Pink, this guy who's from the future, who's sort of a space guy. Don't know what to say. I thought that it was really strong. They introduced Orson Pink, and I thought that was good. I thought that was amazing, actually. Even though it wasn't as scary, I still felt I didn't know what was going to happen, which is always a good thing. Opposed from the last episode, it was sort of almost exciting to find out what was going to happen. Well, it was exciting, yeah, and it was kind of creepy at the same time. So it had a good balance between those two, but not really as scary as whatever. but I'm sure kids would get really scared of this pretty easily. Orson Pink as a character was quite dull. Didn't seem like Danny Pink at all. He was played by the same actor, obviously, but he didn't really get enough of a build, really, to make him any distinguishable from any other side character you get in any Doctor Who episode. Why do I keep saying but anyway, Orson Pink for this episode. Say it again. Anyway, at the end of the episode, it was sort of people argue about whether that was actually a good ending, and I thought it was pretty good. If you don't really know, you can go watch the episode. I won't kind of spoil the ending, but it was pretty enjoyable for me. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so that was Listen, and in all, I think this episode deserved to be a highlight from Series 8. I'm sure people don't even agree. They probably don't even have this in the top 3. I say this is my top 3, maybe my 3rd favourite episode, just for the fact that it had a really weird, different approach than before and after. Yeah, it was grim, it was dark, and I like that in Doctor Who quite a lot. And it's sort of been taken away in this new generation of Doctor Who. But I'm glad that they still have the chance to do stuff like this again and again. So that's pretty wonderful to see. I think I'm going to give this episode be nice to it and give it an 8 out of 10. Why I don't give it as good as the first episode was probably because it wasn't as good. The story was a little weaker than that one, so 8 out of 10. If you disagree, you can comment below what you think. So 8 out of 10, I think that's alright for this episode. Yeah.
And now the 5th episode of Series 8, this one being Time Heist from the 8th series. So the plot is that the Doctor is trying to convince Clara to come with him for a day of sightseeing in the TARDIS as she prepares for a date with Danny Pink. We continue on with that story, when the TARDIS phone begins to ring. Despite Clara's protests, the Doctor answers, suddenly to find themselves in a strange chamber with 2 other people, Sai, a hacker with augmented brain, and Cybra, a mutant humanoid with the ability to shapeshift. They listen to a recording of their own voices, revealing that they agreed to wipe their own memories. Discover a briefcase left by a shadowy person named the Architect. The briefcase contains plans to rob the impregnable vaults of the Bank of Carobraxus, which we get a preview of in the opening sequence. The group takes tools provided in the case and flee the room. Inside the bank itself, as guards arrive. Stranded with no memory as to why they agreed to rob the bank, the foursome agreed to follow the Architect's instructions. As they work through the plan, Sai reveals that he'd previously erased his own memories in his cybernetic hardware to protect his loved ones. Cybra also confessed to the Doctor that she also finds her shapeshifting ability a curse. She immediately changes whenever she touches another person, preventing her from being trusted by others or having romantic relationships. So, yeah, we're introduced to this episode. Really exciting introduction, and it shows us one of the most cinematic episodes so far of the series. I guess this series marked for me some sort of quite a cinematic series, definitely. As opposed to Series 7 Part 2, it felt new, fresh, and I think a lot more loaded with... Well, Series 7 as a whole, it just felt a lot more creative and new. A new direction, we got a new Doctor, and here we are with this new cool opening. And if you want me to discuss the new opening, with this one, we see that they have to find out why they're going to rob this bank, but they're sort of forced into the decision with 2 other people, which I said Cybra and Sai, I think. So these 2 guys, I thought Sai was played pretty well. I didn't think it was that much to work with in my opinion on the character level there, but it definitely felt pretty well developed in terms of a bit of a backstory and it just didn't feel too realistic, though, in fairness. But again, this guy is sort of a bit robot in the mind, but yeah, I thought it was played alright, and it worked well, kind of well in this episode. We had Sabra, who was, I think, a little less to work on than Sai personally, but again, Sabra was the person who shapeshifted, and how that story worked out was kind of different. So I think that this one, yeah, it had a good few moments. We get into the story and how the adventure sort of takes hold. Miss Delphox in this episode, playing the role, was a very intriguing character, you could say. She held up her own, very good her own sort of persona, which worked well, I guess. She was in the Carbrox Bank, and how her character developed was quite cool. Obviously, I liked the bit. She's a clone of another Madame Carbrox's, and they're all clones and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of unusual there. We get to see Teller, who's sort of a villain in this episode, who ends up running off with another one. So this guy sort of works his way to try to kill the Doctor and his friends by wiping their memory, wiping out their heads. It's really gruesome, actually, how they do it. But he tried to do this weird wiping thing with the guys, and yeah, it was kind of weird. But the ending I didn't really like with those guys. Anyway, they end up leaving and finding out just how they should do it. And this one, for me, I know a lot of people who didn't really like this one at all. There was good points of this episode, coming from the fact that it felt quite new, but the characters for me weren't the greatest, the side characters, and Clara was none to be seen in this one, really. Maybe that's just me being... No, I think that's kind of fair enough to say that Clara wasn't as strong in this episode, as I do think she should be. But again, we can save that for later episodes, as it goes on. So this one probably wouldn't be one that I'll go back to straight away, but I think it was kind of memorable for what the villain sort of possessed, and the villain was quite memorable, so I think that in a way Teller was pretty good, and the Bank of Carbrox was a brilliant set to look at, and I think there's kind of good visuals in this episode as well. But anyway, also Samuel Anderson as Danny Pink was uncredited in this episode. So yeah. It was written by Stephen Thompson and Stephen Moffat, and you can see that in the story way it goes. So maybe a bit amateur story wise, but yeah, wasn't too great. But I'm not going to be too critiqueful. So Time Heist. So our next episode, episode 6 of series 8, is one that I didn't really pay too much close attention to. One that I probably didn't really watch in full, but I know that there was some moments in this episode. Of course, we get to see Courtney Woods, played by Ellis George, in this episode quite a bit, and I was kind of intrigued by this episode by the fact that it featured quite a lot in Coal Hill Secondary School. This is sort of featured in a few other episodes of Doctor Who. If you sort of go back in time, you can see it. One of them being from Series 2, I think, School Reunion, with Sarah Jane Smith and Doctor. So yeah, it was featured a lot in the promotion material for this episode, Coal Hill School, in the episode The Caretaker. So, Clara Oswald is struggling to maintain two separate lives, one as a doctor's companion and the other as a school teacher at Coal Hill School, while also having a relationship with fellow teacher Danny Pink. Preparing for her next outing, the doctor informs Clara that she cannot join him as he is going under deep cover. The next morning, in the school staff room, the head teacher presents a temporary caretaker, the doctor, under the alias John Smith. Clara eventually learns the Doctor's actual purpose is the presence of a murderous robot called the Skovox Blitzer, located near the school. which contains enough firepower to destroy the planet. Clara tells the Doctor to leave it alone, but the Doctor explains that if he does not act, someone will attack it, and it will begin to destroy Earth. He intends to draw to the school at night when it is empty and use a time displacement vortex to displace it a billion years in the future, where it can't harm anyone. He is in the process of planting devices around the school to generate the vortex. He also demonstrates an invisibility watch, which he will use to avoid detection by the Skovox. This episode was written by Gareth Roberts and Stephen Moffat, and while at school, the Doctor encounters Danny. Learning he's a former soldier, the Doctor assumes he's a PE teacher. Claiming he cannot believe Danny is actually a maths teacher, soon afterwards the Doctor assumes that Clara has an interest in another teacher, Adrian, due to his appearance being similar to that of the previous incarnation, the 11th Doctor. The Doctor tactically improves of Clara's relationship. Danny, however, becomes suspicious of the Doctor. One of Clara and Danny's students, Courtney Woods, also becomes skeptical of him when she sees the TARDIS hidden inside his cupboard. So Courtney Woods getting a bit of the showtime this episode. Yeah. So this new character we've introduced to, yeah, she's quite good. As far as kid characters go, she's played like, you know, an average kid, I guess. I mean, maybe a bit overdone, but yeah, it worked well this episode, I could say. So, and the story does prove to be a little complicated in the way it's set out to. But does it play out well? Well, I'm not really sure on it. I guess I'm gonna have to watch this episode again because I haven't really seen it in full. But again, I think that it's a good premise, and the Skovox Blitzer is alright but forgettable in whole. So Doctor plays pretty down low character in this episode, sort of unlike this guy that he actually is, and I think I like that he can do sort of stuff like this. Danny again being the usual Danny. We'll see later on him getting more a bit developed, but again he's already being developed and it's pretty good. One problem I do have that sort of overarches the whole of Series 8 is that Danny is not getting the sort of Doctor treatment. Being a companion, he isn't really a companion at all, but we'll see him go onto the ship with his guys, but not being one like Clara, and they never really fit together with the Doctor, so we get to see some time with all the three characters together, which is quite cool. Again, I said the monster isn't really that great, but again, everything else works quite well indeed. So I can't really give this one a mark, but again, the last episode I didn't give it a mark. I was going to give that a 7 out of 10, and this one I'll give this one a good strong 7.5 out of 10. I'm not giving these marks around the same for each one, but you know, this one I didn't really pay much attention to, but there you go. That's sort of how the episode went through. We did get a lot of school teachers. Missy made a brief appearance in this episode, but we see the Skovox a few days prior awakens in the Promised Land as well. Yeah, so that's sort of how we get to see and end in the episode, Skovox dying. And now, episode 7 of Series 8. We get quite into the series right now. Kill the Moon. This one is quite an interesting name for an episode, I would think. I know a lot of you think this as well. Directed by Paul Wimshurst and written by Peter Harness on his own. Let's begin and talk about the episode. After events of the caretaker, Clara Oswald warns the Doctor that her student Courtney Woods is still interested in his TARDIS and trying to clean up the mess inside it she made previously. As they enter the TARDIS, the Doctor stops Courtney from cleaning and offers to take her and Clara on a trip in her time machine. They arrive in 2049 in a spaceship filled with nuclear devices on a crash course with the moon. They survive the crash, and while the Doctor is curious as a higher than expected gravity they are experiencing, the three are met by Captain Lundvik and two other astronauts. After dismissing the Doctor's attempts to call their presence as a school trip, Ludwig explains they are on a suicide mission to blow up the moon. She explains that years prior there was a sudden mass high tide, wiping out a significant fraction of humanity and taking out many of Earth's artificial satellites. Mankind abandoned scientific advancement for the sake of the survival of the species. A decision Ludwig created as she was poised to help lead a major space program prior to the disaster. A Mexican colony on the moon had reported changes in the moon before Earth lost humanity contact with them, leading scientists to believe the problem existed there. They surmised that by destroying the moon, they were able to save humanity from further harm in private. Clara tries to ask the Doctor about this point in time, knowing that in future events she has witnessed the moon is still there. But the Doctor reveals that this is a fluxed moment in time, the action is yet to be decided, and he is unable to become involved in those choices. So very kind of intriguing story there. Anyway, this episode takes a turn when the Clara and Doctor relationship is really tested in this episode. We've all sort of wanted to see it, and yes, we've had this relationship for such a long time, and we've sort of teased it from the very beginning in Deep Breath, episode 1 of Series 8, that there could be quite a big sort of feud developing there between the two, and here is where we get it. Clara wants to do something. The Doctor says that, well, it's fluxed and we can't do anything about it. In the end, back on Earth, the four watches the dragon-like creatures hatched and flies away, the shell of the moon harmlessly disintegrating. At Clara's insistence, the Doctor reveals that because of the brief re-interest in what happened with the moon, humanity would be rekindled to travel to the stars, helping them travel across the universe, and then assures Ludwig that she will now have a real space program to lead. They then witness a new moon. A freshly laid egg by the creature appears in Earth's orbit. After the return Ludwig and Courtney to their proper time and place, Clara asks the Doctor about forcing her to make that choice, telling him that if he makes himself a friend of Earth, it is his decision too. She ultimately tells him that she does not want to see him again. After he leaves the TARDIS back at Coal Hill, she is comforted by Danny Pink. She explains that she's done with the Doctor, but Danny notes that she is really not ready to move on. When asked how he became so wise, we learn that he left the army under circumstances that refers to as a really bad day. Later that evening, Clara returns to her flat and looks out onto the moon. So, that's it on this episode. Kill the Moon. A lot of people like to look at this as an episode that really had a very turning point in their relationship, as it does have. I thought some extraordinary visuals, as always, at near the end of the episode. We got that beach scene, which was pretty good, and I think it was kind of believable. They filmed this in a foreign place, so they get their episode away wherever they go. Like every series, they get a foreign episode to film. I mean, we've got some great modes over the last new modern era of series, and they've filmed that moon bit by editing. It looks very good set, because it wasn't actually a set, it was filmed in like an island somewhere in Europe, and they made it look like that, so it's pretty wonderful. Of course, if you're talking about this episode, you've got to feature your side characters there. Ludwig, who was pretty good. It sort of reminds you of Waters of Mars quite a bit, with the Captain Adelaide Brooks, and here we are with Captain Ludwig. But again, the Doctors did actually save the other people, and yeah, that went pretty well. So, I guess, what else do I have to say about this episode? But that relationship testing at the end was sort of what people focused on, and sort of what I focused on when you think of this episode. A pretty major shift in Clara's ideals, and her sort of like the way she views everything, and her view on everything, the point of view that she feels, and the whole adventures thing, and how the very good point of Doctor is meant to be helping Earth, not taking away from it, and forcing her into a bad decision that could have, it was her, and she felt like she was an individual character, and we get this with every sort of with every companion, but here it is, and good change. So, Kill the Moon, I thought, quite interesting indeed. But maybe the story was quite strong. But so I'll give this a good strong 8.5 out of 10 on how much I enjoy it. So up there with like the likes of Deep Breath. But some parts of it took away from me, so I could be moving that down to 8. No, we'll keep it at 8.5 for now. I'll tell you if I change my decision on that. So, by the way, the last episode was one of my personal favourites. But now, as you can see, we're moving on to our next episode, which I think got quite a bit of press, and was one that actually surprised me. But a great monster concept that I have to talk about. Let's get to the synopsis. In the weeks following the events of Kill the Moon, Clara has come to realise she does not hate the Doctor for taking her into dangerous situations. Though her boyfriend Danny Pink urges her to stop travelling with him, Clara allows the Doctor to take on her one last hurrah. They arrive via TARDIS in the future aboard a space-bound train that has been modelled after the Orient Express, with many of its passengers in period outfits. They learn of the death of the elderly Mrs. Pitt, who died after claiming to have witnessed a mummy attack her. The Doctor, posing as a mystery shopper, talks to Perkins, the train's engineer, who is also curious to her death and is suspicious of the train and its automated computer system. Gus and provides the Doctor with various manifests to study. Meanwhile, Clara speaks to Maisie, Mrs. Pitt's granddaughter, who is traumatized by her death and has been trying to see her body. In their search, they become trapped in the storage car, where a sarcophagus sits, and the two bond as they wait for rescue. A chef on the train dies of a heart attack and claiming to have seen a mummy. The Doctor reviews video footage and find that both deaths occurred exactly 66 seconds after lights flickered nearby. This follows from myth that Professor Morehouse reiterates about the legends of a supernatural being called the Foretold. Clara is able to make contact with the Doctor, but when he goes to rescue her, the lights nearby flicker, and the sarcophagus begins to open. Fearing that Clara is the next victim, he tries to unseal the storage door but is stopped by Captain Quell, who is determined his credentials are fake and charges him with murder. However, when one of Quell's men dies after 66 seconds, Quell realizes that Doctor is innocent and lets him go. So this episode was written by Jamie Mathieson and directed by Paul Wilhurst once again. Let's talk about the end of the episode. Gus congratulates the passengers on their success and then evacuates the area. The train as their services are not needed. The Doctor successfully identifies the Foretold as a modified stealth soldier of a long-ago war, and offers their surrender as to make the Foretold believe the war is over. The Foretold becomes visible to all, salutes the Doctor, and then disappears in a pile of dust, leaving behind its phase-shifting device. While Clara and the others pass out, the Doctor rigs the phase-shifting device into a short-range teleporter and evacuates the surviving passengers to the TARDIS before the train explodes. On a nearby planet, Clara regains consciousness while the Doctor explains he's returned the passengers to a nearby city, and regrets that he could not hack into Gus in time to find out who was responsible for the train before the attempt triggered the train's destruction. Clara and Doctor talk about his actions and his apparent heartlessness towards the passengers he could not save. But the Doctor explains that doing the right thing sometimes means making hard choices. As they prepare to leave, the Doctor offers Perkins, who he has come to respect, a job to maintain the TARDIS, but Perkins politely declines. Danny calls Clara to ask if she had said her final goodbyes to the Doctor. As she hangs up, she lies and admits that Dr. Danny accepted her continuing to travel with the Doctor, and tells the Doctor to shut up and give me some planets. So, pretty well done, I think, and it was quite surprising how good it was. Yeah, I quite liked it a lot, and definitely some great morals in it as well, that he has to sacrifice some people for the greater good of his own friends and stuff like that. To find his way to stop this enemy, people had to go. And the greatness about this this enemy, was he could not be stopped. And he didn't know how they were going to die, but they're going to die in 66 seconds. So pretty wonderful in that end. I like the writing. Mr. Perkins was pretty wonderful. And yeah, it was a cool setting to see them on a train where they're all sort of stuck together. It's one of those types of stories. Yeah, I think I liked that quite a bit. Definitely had some good points to it. And, well, it does a pretty good job at showing us some pure terror in the eyes of the enemy. So, from that end of points of views, and from a lot of other ways, I really, really enjoyed this episode. So, I'm giving it an 8.5, or even a 9 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, because I just thought it was a beautiful episode, and it worked well, and did what it wanted to do. So, 9 out of 10 from me on the Orient Express. And now we get to episode 9 of series 8, which comes to be Flatline. This one proved to be an interesting trailer, and I got into this episode, and I thought it was really funny with the bit with the Doctor shrinking inside the TARDIS. Let's get to it. On returning to Clara to London, the Doctor finds something is draining energy from the TARDIS, and they end up in Bristol instead. They find the TARDIS exterior size has shrunk as a result of the energy drain, and the Doctor sends Clara out to learn more while he tries to stop the drainage. Clara befriends Rigsy, a graffiti artist now performing community service with a small crew. Rigsy explains several people have gone missing recently. Their disappearance is memorized by a mural in a pedestrian tunnel painted by an unknown person. Clara returns to find the TARDIS has shrunk even farther. With the Doctor unable to get physically out, he passes her his sonic screwdriver, psychic paper, which we learn he has from Listen, episode 4, and an earpiece to let him communicate with her, and ask her to carry the TARDIS with her as she rejoined Rigsy, taking on the role of Dr. Oswald and adopting several of the Doctor's mannerisms. So, really interesting on behalf of Rigsy, working off to be pretty good. This one was directed by Douglas MacKinnon and written by Jimmy Matthiessen. So, Clara is able to stop an out-of-service train, and they use it to attempt to ram oncoming Boneless and give themselves time, but they simply transform it into a two-dimensional image. As they flee, Clara finds the TARDIS now resembling a Gallifreyan cube and takes it with her in a disused office. Clara comes up with a plan, and her and Rosie paint a realistic-looking door on the back of a large poster when they hang over an open doorway in a tunnel. When the Boneless encounter the fake door, they try to flatten it with their energy, but this instead funnels power back to the TARDIS situated behind the poster. The Doctor uses this energy to restore the TARDIS to normal. Realizing that they have no interest in peace, the Doctor uses the TARDIS and sonic screwdriver to stop the Bonus, sending them back to their dimension with a warning to those who survive the trip to never return. The Doctor returns everyone to the service safely. Clara rejects a call from Danny, catching the Doctor's attention. He notes that she enjoyed playing the Doctor for the day. This episode concludes with Missy seated in a darkened room, watching Clara's adventures on a tablet computer. Missy says with regard to Clara that she has chosen well. So, really cool episode actually. I like the concept of it, to see Clara be so clever and cool in this one. Nice and fresh. And Rigsy was a really nice little character on the side, who actually had a good bit of story. Well, not much a story as such, but he connected with what was going on, the plot, really well, and in that way it worked quite well. The Bonus not being the strongest in this one, but being pretty creepy and a good concept, I have to say. So on the concept side, it got really good there, and yeah, you do remember it when you think of this one. Doctor being shrunken down does take a bit away from the story. You don't get to see as much of him. It's called Doctor Who, and we want to see Doctor Who. What else can I say about the episode other than the fact that the Boneless gone, the Doctor defeated them along with Clara, and Clara really worked well to help the Doctor and become quite clever in this one. And she would see sort of very clever personality. Actual characteristics. This is what we've been talking about. Clara getting actual characteristics is serious. it's really wonderful to see it, and I hope it continues on into the future episodes, which it does alright. I mean, we've got the finale coming up in a two-parter, episode 11 and 12, and the next episode 10 is quite disputed to whether it's really bad, really good. But this one served as not as important episode, but it made it feel quite isolated on its own little story line, away from the main plot device, without Danny in it. But apart from that, really, really interesting take on the Doctor and Clara relationship and the dynamic. So I said I'm going to give this one a nice good 8 out of 10. And now here we get to In the Forest of the Night, quite a feuded, what can I say, criticised episode. This one is the 10th episode of the 8th series of British science fiction television show Doctor Who, written by Frank Cottrell Boyce and directed by Cherie Folkson. This episode stars Peter Capaldi, Jenna Coleman and Samuel Anderson, who we all know as Danny Pink. Clara Oswald and Danny Pink are chaperoning a number of Cull Hill students on an overnight stay at London's Natural History Museum. They wake up to find that London, as well as the rest of the globe, has suddenly been covered by forests in a matter of hours. The Doctor learns of this when one of Clara's students, Maeve, finds his TARDIS parked in a forest-covered Trafalgar Square and witnesses the change. The Doctor calls Clara to confirm their situation, causing Danny to react resentfully upon finding out Clara still secretly keeps in contact with him. Clara and Danny lead the group to Trafalgar Square to reunite with the Doctor as they talk about the trees. The Doctor suspects that only way the trees could have grown was due to some external influence. They all board the TARDIS, and as the Doctor works with their controls, Danny finds Maeve's notebooks, which Clara has accidentally left aboard whilst on her last trip in the TARDIS. The notebooks are filled with pictures of an angry sun striking down trees. Clara explains that Maeve's sister Annabelle disappeared a year prior, leaving Maeve traumatized, and she has been special medication that quiets voices in her head. The Doctor realizes that Maeve is essential to the appearance of the forest, the condition allowing her to tune some other communication frequency. When they see Maeve is not with the rest of the children, the Doctor and Clara race out to find her. The Doctor regretfully takes off in a TARDIS and monitors the solar flares, but inspiration hits him, but he quickly returns to Earth and catches up with Clara and the others. He has interpreted the cryptic message from the beings and determined that they were responsible for protecting the Earth from disaster during the Tunguska event and the Kuroku impact, were rapidly growing trees across the planet to buffer the effects of these impacts that should have otherwise extinguished all life on Earth. The sudden appearance of the forest now is to prevent damage to the planet from the flare. However, Danny reveals that she saw the news that the government plans to use defoliating agents to strip the leaves of the trees to allow them to be burnt, which would affect their ability to stop the flare. The Doctor uses the TARDIS to hack into the world's cellular network, and Maeve reads off a network as message prepared by her and the rest of the children, warning Earth's population not to harm the trees. She also asks for her sister Annabelle to return. The Doctor offers the group the opportunity to witness the solar flare's impact from the TARDIS, but Danny says he'll take the children back home. Clara joins him for the part of the way, during which Danny reveals he has figured out that Clara lied to him about travelling with the Doctor, but is willing to accept her apology and continue their relationship. The Doctor and Clara watch the flare harmlessly strike the Earth. That is also watched by Missy on her tablet, calling the result a surprise. Later, in Clara's flat, the Doctor and Clara watch as the new tree disperse, and the Doctor explains that the humanity will forget about this, just as they did about previous events, but their lingering memories would become part of mankind's fairy tales. Maeve, having reunited with her mother, who have been searching for her, returns home during this. As one of the new bushes disperses, they find Annabelle waiting for them there, and the family have a tearful reunion. So guys, this has been it from this one. So, in the Forest of the Night, don't know really what I think much more than it's an episode that has an interesting ring to it. Kids that didn't really work too well as actors, but Maeve working pretty well, and her finding Annabelle in the end. So we get a happy ending in such a way that it was becoming a bit too happy for me, but it goes up there with Robot Sherwood having that really cheesy ending that they sort of would expect from this sort of show. Of course, the other parts of the episode, like the other kids that really annoyed me, were there just, to be annoying. I felt there were no need for them, and if we just had the other kid there, it would be fine. Or maybe even appearance of, say, that other girl that we had. What's her name? Whatever her name was that we had in Kill the Moon and stuff like that, and the caretaker. She was wonderful, and I think that would be a great addition to the episode. But of course, Maeve was pretty good. Simon Anderson as Danny Pink, he was alright. Proved to be somewhat of not caring too much about the relationship in this episode. And the Doctor was also sort of focusing not much on this. I mean, we've judged between what this episode was meant to be, a plot device for not stupid, but just the environmental message that really doesn't really work too well with Doctor Who. And is it a character story piece? Well, it doesn't work too well both sides of the story as much as it should. The Solar Flares is kind of weak story subject, and didn't enjoy this one too much. Got a bit bored through this episode. So, of course, one other point of this episode is that there's a forest in London, and there's like a postbox here, and the mother is trying to look for her daughter, and they're all in the museum, and it seemed really unrealistic how that all worked out, and there's nobody in the streets or anything in the middle of London. It's just those kids. So very weird, and didn't feel like a real situation. The whole history was sort of weird, and I know this does a lot in Doctor Who, but it just felt way too weird to be true. So In the Forest of the Night for me gets 6.5 out of 10 for definite. I'd say 6.5 to 7 out of 10, but I'm going to say 6.5 because it just didn't offer much levels for me, and the writing wasn't too great as well. Well, I mean, it was pretty good, but it wasn't like good level writing. It was average. Okay, now here we are at Dark Water, series 8, episode 11. 11, I don't know why I say that weirdly. In this episode, Danny Pink is killed and finds himself in the Netosphere as the Doctor and his companion Clara Oswald to try to find Danny. They find themselves in a facility that accommodates Cybermen run by recurring characters. Missy, in the episode's climax, Missy reveals her true identity as the Mistress, a female incarnation of the Doctor's arch enemy, the Master, who was last seen in the 2009-2010 serial The End of Time. This episode was written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Rachel Tallawy. In homage to the 1968 serial The Invasion, Cybermen marched down Peter Hill near St. Paul's Cathedral in London. So Clara is talking on her phone to Danny Pink, ready to admit that she's been travelling with the Doctor and that she sincerely loves Danny. When the line goes silent, a stranger picks up and Sally informs Clara that Danny was hit by a passing car and has died. She struggles with his death for days, unwilling to let her emotions go. She ultimately schemes to force the Doctor to change the past. She struggles that they visit an active volcano. She suggests, secretly collects all 7 TARDIS keys, and after the TARDIS arrives, slaps a sleep-inducing patch on the Doctor's neck. Once the Doctor wakes up at the volcano locked out of the TARDIS, Clara throws the keys one by one into the lava. The only way to destroy them, she says, she'll not stop unless the Doctor agrees to save Danny, despite his claim that it will create a time paradox. The Doctor, however, refuses, and Clara destroys all the keys, tearfully saying that she would do it again. The Doctor eventually reveals that the entire scenario is only a hypnotic revision of hers. The patch did not work on him, and said he has used it on her to learn why she was upset and to see how far she is willing to go. He then offers as a friend, despite his betrayal of him, to see if they can locate Danny in the afterlife and rescue him. Near the end of the episode, meanwhile, Missy instructs the skeletons to rise and begin draining the tanks. As the Doctor and Dr. Shang enter, Shang reveals that Missy is the facility's supervisor, not its receptionist. Disappointed with Chang, Missy kills him with a handheld device. So Chang would be the person that... Well, Seb was the person who created Danny in the Netosphere. As the tanks start to drain, the skeletons are revealed to be Cybermen. Missy shows the Doctor a spherical device with the ceiling called the Netosphere, a Gallifreyan matrix data slice in which the consciousness of the deceased are held and prepared to be inserted into new Cybermen soldiers after their emotions are deleted. Stunned, the Doctor realizes that Missy is really a Time Lady, having two hearts, when he is first noticed from the earlier to contact. As the tanks finally drain and open, the Doctor races out of this facility to find that it is inside St. Paul's Cathedral in the middle of contemporary London. He tries to warn away citizens, but Missy calls out that thwarting are the ravings of a lunatic. The Doctor insists on knowing who Missy is. She reveals that Missy is short for mistress, since in her current form she cannot really call herself the Master. The episode ends with those Cybermen beginning to march on London. The Doctor is shocked to Missy's identity. Clara is trapped in Dr. Shang's lab with another Cyberman. Danny is about to activate the deletion of his emotions when he sees in the reflection of his afterlife iPad the young boy that he had accidentally killed. So, that is it for my sort of plot devices there. So, let us talk about Dark Water in all this episode. Presented first part of the two-parter that we have for our finale. Pretty good introduction. The Netosphere bit with Danny was quite intriguing with Seb, and the way that went down was really good. How he sort of acted on the fact that he's working here for so long and he feels like this isn't just his normal day job. And the Netosphere looked really pretty cool with the whole idea of the skeleton. Cybermen was pretty awesome, and the whole way that worked out was good too. It had some really, really good ideas all put together. I really enjoyed it, and it set up really quite well, but it was the setup that was good. Missy now being a little bit weird because she's nothing like the Master at all, and she's her own unique character, which you could say is kind of a bad thing because it takes away from what she should be like, and she's just kind of weird, and it doesn't work too well, but it works. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy her as a character anyway. The Doctor, basically being forced a decision by Clara. Obviously, that was beautiful opening with Clara and Danny, and for that reason, I really enjoyed watching the episode. Obviously, Doctor using his cleverness as Time Lord in this episode pretty well, and the whole Cybermen invasion, I say Dalek, is pretty intense. So, yeah. For all those reasons and above, I would watch this episode again. Pretty wonderful and good setup for our final episode, Death in Heaven, episode 12. So, guys, without further ado, let's get to the finale, and I'll give this one a good strong 7.5 out of 10. Let's get to the finale. And here we are with the final episode of Doctor Who, which is, of course, Death in Heaven, 12th and final episode of the 8th series of British science fiction television programme Doctor Who. Is the second episode of a two-part story involving the return of Cybermen and the Master in the form of Missy. The first part being Dark Water, written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Rachel Talalay. The episode stars Peter Capaldi, Jenna Coleman, Samuel Anderson, Michelle Gomez, Chris Addison, Gemma Redgrave, and Ingrid Oliver. The episode received mostly positive reviews, with critics praising its writing, direction, and acting. With Peter Capaldi, Jenna Coleman, Samuel Anderson, and Michelle Gomez receiving wide acclaim for the report. Gomez was generally considered to a highlight of the episode. For the last episode, I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 instead of the 7.5 I was proposing. This episode was written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Rachel Talalay, and this is the plot. Continuing from Dark Water, Clara Oswald is trapped with the Cyberman in the headquarters of 3W in St. Paul's Cathedral. As it tries to kill her due to her irrelevance, she manages to stop the attack by stating she is really the Doctor. This reminds me of the first episode, Deep Breath, when she does quite a similar thing with the robots, clockwork robots. Outside, the Doctor reels from the revelation that Missy, the woman controlling the Cybermen, is a female incarnation of the Doctor, of the Master. The public appears unconcerned by the arrival of the Cybermen, but unit led by Kate Leopard Stewart turns up and surround the Doctor, Missy, and her group of Cybermen. The Cybermen take to the area using built-in leg jets and scatter over the British Isles. Missy reveals that 91 Cybermen, one for every major population area in the United Kingdom, have been released from St. Paul's to explode over graveyards in the depopulated area, releasing cyber pollen that were resurrected dead as Cybermen. Similar events occur all over the world. Unit render both Missy and the Doctor unconscious and take them into custody. Although disappointed that her plans have been ruined after this bit goes on, Missy suggests that she and Doctor are still become friends and return to Gallifrey, which she claims she now return to its original location. Furious over what has happened, Clara instead prepares to kill Missy with her own weapon. The Doctor, however, insists on committing the deed himself to keep Clara's hands clean. He acknowledges to Missy that she wins, but before he can fire, a solitary Cyberman vaporizes Missy and gestures towards an unconscious but still living Kate Lethbridge Stewart. The Doctor realizes that this Cyberman is her father, the late Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, also with his humanity intact. This Doctor salutes his old friend, something Kate remarked earlier that her father always wanted from the Doctor, and Lethbridge Stewart fires his leg jets and flies away. 2 weeks later, Danny contacts Clara from the Mesosphere as it begins to shut down, explaining that there is only enough power in Missy's control base to bring one person back to life. Danny uses it to resurrect the boy he has accidentally killed while serving in the army. He asks Clara to return the boy to his parents. In the interim, the Doctor travels to the special coordinates given by Missy, only to find nothing here. Gallifrey remains lost. Sometime later, Clara meets with the Doctor to tell him about Danny's fate, assuming Danny's alive again. The Doctor interrupts her with the news that he found Gallifrey and planned to return home, wanted to spare Clara's feelings. Clara in turn says that she and Danny are going to settle down and resume the relationship. They bid each other goodbye. So, it is the end of the episode, and the continuity I will feature in my next one. This will be Last Christmas, sort of pre-look at, and just a look at all the stuff that's happened since Series 8 has concluded, and we can move on to Christmas special, which will be Last Christmas. So, but first of all, let's talk about this finale, the big finale of Series 8, Death in Heaven. Obviously, it performs well on all cylinders, and pretty well on some as well. Characters are all very, very strong, and I can't really fault it on that level. The ending, I think, was absolutely wonderful, with Clara and Danny both lying to each other, and the Doctor and Clara sort of stepping away from each other's big adventures. And Last Christmas could be their very last, and I think it will be their last ever adventure. Obviously, it's called Last Christmas. She's not going to be here for much longer, and so we bid her farewell. And she had a great series overall. Of course, let's talk about this episode. The story went really well with how it went. Missy being better than her last episode in this one, and I kind of preferred over the last one quite a bit. So wonderful. The plan that she had was pretty clever, and the Cybermen did have a good purpose in this one, and I'm glad that they're back instead of the Daleks. That would have been kind of stupid to have the Daleks in this episode. We had the Daleks in the second episode of the series, but here we are with some new cool villains, and the way the humans and the Daleks were incorporated into each other. It was really cool. The dead, it was all creepy and grim, and how I liked Doctor Who, as I said previously in Listen, episode 4. So episode 12, Death in Heaven being really good. That was just my quick little overview of that one. Michelle Gomez as Missy, I think. Am I saying that right? Yeah. So wonderful from Peter Capaldi, Jenna Coleman, Samantha Anderson, and Michelle Gomez. And I think a great send-off to Samuel Anderson as Danny Pink. If we ever see him return, which you probably will in Last Christmas, we might even see just a brief moment of him. But if this is him for the end, great on you. Great series from him. Pretty flawless acting in some places. So that's it been me for Death in Heaven and all of Series 8, guys. That's how we finished off, and I'm sorry that it took me so long to put this up. I mean, you can comment below if you're a Doctor Who fan, or if you just want to talk about this, if you've seen any of the episodes, or any of them. Give me your opinion on any of the episodes you've seen in this overview. Tell me about your overview, share this video with your friends, favourite, add it to your playlist or whatever. Like, of course, comment, and hit that subscribe button below. So thank you guys so much for watching this. It's been me, TV1, back again. I'm going to do more Doctor Who videos later. Of course, I'm talking about that last Christmas video I will be doing. So thank you guys so much for watching. As I just said, subscribe and enjoy. See you next time.